to learn very fast, to always know that what you know is a tiny, tiny, tiny infinitesimal fraction of all there is to know in the world, and keep that humility and learn very fast from everybody around you. You learn from people younger than you, earlier in their career than you. You learn from people later in their career than you. You learn from companies like you, companies different, from investors. You learn from pitches that you do where you fail. You learn from pitches where you succeed. Build an executive team as fast as you can. Having people, there's a lot of talent, particularly if you're building in the US. All over the world, it's the case, particularly if you're building in the US, there's a lot of talent, and there are a lot of people that you can really learn from. And building an executive team and empowering them is something that I wish I learned sooner. It took me time to accept to give up control. It took me time to accept to delegate to other people. Just naturally, as a founder, you tend to hold on to that thing that you made. And the sooner you learn that lesson, the better, because if you really have an executive team around you where there are partners and they're taking ideas and running with them, your speed will triple, your skills will improve. So you really have to make sure in your routines, there's times for you to take care of yourself, to spend time with family, take care of your health. The cliche things, exercise, eat well, sleep well, it's cliche, but they are extremely, extremely, extremely important. Not only because of yourself, but because if you are not functioning properly, the impact on the company multiplies very quickly. Entrepreneurship is less like building and being on a train, and it's more like being on a boat where the water is changing every minute. The winds are changing, the waves are changing, high tide, low tide. There's somebody in front of you and not somebody. It's happening kind of on a minute-by-minute basis. And your job as an entrepreneur is to really kind of continuously try to manage with the conditions around you and try to keep as stable as possible. And that's resiliency. In entrepreneurship, the proof is in the pudding. Have you built something? Have you invented something? Have you found a better mousetrap? Have you found sort of a product improvement that has product market fit? I always encourage entrepreneurs I work with to have a functional prototype of what they want to build and to live with it and try it and see it in action. It's very, very, very different walking into an investor, an early employee, any kind of partner that you're trying to work with a sketch versus a prototype. In the early days, I wanted my hand in everything. I wanted to see everything. I wanted to get involved in operations. And my excuse was, if I don't know how it's going on day to day, how am I going to help steer the ship? And the fact is, it's not true. If you do good reporting with your team, if you have a way that where you have one-on-ones, you have weekly reporting with your executive team, where you have metrics that everybody is following and they're prioritizing the metrics and you're seeing how the metrics are improving, you really are able to keep your eye on the company and keep informed without being in everybody's business. And then when there's a problem, oftentimes you do have to dig in, but you're digging into that particular problem. And at that point, the team is happy to have you in their business because it's a problem, it's a challenge. Hire good people, hire people you respect and you think are smart and you are learning from. Don't hire people that are just going to do what you want them to do because you're going to be wrong and you want somebody to tell you you're wrong. In between, when you start doing that, I think your question is like, oh, what are you going to do with all your free time? You're not going to have any free time because managing people is a full-time job. The occasional crisis is not so occasional. It's pretty frequent. It just changes in its nature. Sometimes it's a crisis of funding. Sometimes it's a crisis of product. Sometimes it's a crisis of no customers. Sometimes it's a crisis with an important customers upset. Sometimes it's a HR crisis. That takes up a lot of your time. And then thinking time and also sort of being the face of the company, that's a lot of time too. Traveling, meeting other prospective buyers, talking, giving talks about the company, whatever it is, your marketing strategy is, being involved in that takes up a lot of time. So you should have no free time if you're sort of doing the strategic things right. When littleBits was acquired, the company was a little over 7 years old, and I had started working on littleBits for 3 years before that. So it's been about 10 years since I was working on it. And so it was kind of a little bit of a turning point. I'm, obviously very much kind of in touch with the company, a big fan and supporter of it, and very happy about where it is and how the product line keeps growing, how the distribution keeps growing. But it's sort of, my baby, and I set it free. There are systemic issues that stand in the way of innovation and progress in schools. And the systemic issues are actually not about technology at all. They're about the way we've organized society. Teachers are very, very underpaid, and they are very overworked. And so when you have that, and a teacher is barely making ends meet with their job, and they are barely keeping up with the hours in the day to do that job. Sometimes, by the way, they have another job on the side to be able to keep up. They can barely do what they do every day without having innovation and kind of a new technology to learn, and a new piece of curriculum to get acquainted with, and a new challenge to iterate on. I believe most people that go into education, whether they're teachers or administrators or other, I believe they go in from passion, because nobody signs up for the kinds of salaries that they get and the kind of work hours that they get if they're not really passionate about it. So I believe their hearts are in the right place, and I believe that they really care about the instruction that they deliver to their and the experiences that they deliver to the students. But when you're overworked, how can you, in addition to the curriculum that you are going to be graded on, evaluated on, measured on, and keep your job because of, how are you now going to take on a new technology that you have to learn on your own time, you're not getting proper training for, you're not getting proper content for, and then you are expected to make it work? When there is also a piece of technology that requires some investment from the parents at home, these parents don't have time either. They're sort of barely making their own job and their care for their kids work at the same time. So we saw it in COVID, where parents had to work full days remotely and be fully functional, but also help with their kids' instruction on Zoom and other things, and after school homework, etc. So the obstacles, I believe, are outside of tech. They are outside of the industry itself. We developed an internal pitching system where anyone can participate in a sort of hackathon where they come up with ideas and pitch it, and it gets voted on. That was something that really kind of inspired people and got anybody involved in coming up with ideas, even when they were outside of product. Your employees are close to the ground and can come up with ideas because they're with customers, they are with vendors, they are with competitors, they see what's happening in the market. And so a lot of times there's this kind of idea that the best ideas have to come from the top, from the CEO. That's absolutely not true. Find a way to create a path from an idea to a prototype, to a pitch, to leadership that's easy, so that somebody has a way to get their ideas to life. The thing I experience most often in Lebanon is when people say, we have a million priorities, we have a million problems, we have a million catastrophes, is this what we're going to focus on now? As if diversity is some nice to have goal that can wait till everything else is perfect and then you pick up that goal. And that is the most ridiculous notion that makes my blood boil, because part of how you solve your immediate problems is through diversity. There are skills that women bring to the table that are specifically better than men at certain types of problems, and those are the problems that we have. So, there are studies that show that women are better at diplomatic negotiations. And when this is a UN study that showed that when women are involved in diplomatic negotiations, the peace agreements tend to last within 15 years. The peace agreements last longer than peace agreements that were negotiated without any men around the table, any women around the table. Who creates a product or a service or a technology company is a big factor in how that product or service works in society, in how it helps or hurts a community, and in how inclusive it is to a group versus another. And so if we're going to create technologies that are going to be used by the 8 billion people on the planet, we have to make sure that we are in the leadership positions, in the influence positions, in the technology creation and design creation positions, creating products that are representative of how diverse the world is. And so you want to have the world is made up of almost 51% women. We want to reach that representation of over 50% women in technology creation and design creation positions. You want that same thing with people of various ethnic backgrounds, various races, various economic statuses, various languages and countries. It's really important because it's going to affect how the technologies are consumed, how they work, and how they help or hurt society. The goal should be that leadership and decision and influence positions in technology companies are as diverse as the society they serve. And we should continue with that work until we reach that goal.